Krueg Show on a Friday, off and running with a little final NFL draft review. We've done a lot of draft review this week, and this is going to be the last one that we do for the season with Eric Froton, who's going to join us here from NBC Sports. We'll get his thoughts. You know Eric. We visited with him a couple times before the draft, and I think he's pretty solid, and obviously he writes a great piece for Roto World, and I'm interested to see exactly what he's got going as far as the 49ers in this draft. It's easy to kind of bash the Niners because they took the kicker in the third round, and many people did not give the 49ers a very highly rated draft. But to me, it's more interesting after the draft when you start to read the commentary from the different people around football that actually do know personnel and don't necessarily, go by the same rules as everybody else and have a different look at it. And just like in the last 24 hours, just getting a chance to read, I thought maybe the best piece I've read so far on the draft from Matt Barrows in the Athletic, where he sat down with Scott McCloughan. I thought that was really, really interesting stuff, in that McCloughan has his concerns about Jair Brown's deep speed, and is not a fan of every pick the 49ers made. Didn't see two or three of the key guys, of course, so he couldn't comment on everybody. But really loved the tight end from Alabama, Cameron Latu. Where a lot of people were saying, oh, come on, Latu should have been a fourth-round pick or a fifth-round pick. Scott McCloughan, who is as good a personnel guy as there is. I mean, McCloughan, I would say, had a huge hand in building the 49ers under Jim Harbaugh. I think Trent Baalke got a lot of the credit for that, but a lot of that was Scott McCloughan and his handiwork in the draft. So McCloughan likes Cameron Latu. He said he had a second-round grade on him. So that right there, and it's funny. It's like, you're sitting there watching this player, and I'm trying to decide who he kind of reminds me of. And it's like a very poor – and I thought to myself, he reminds me of Tony Gonzalez, but obviously Tony Gonzalez is a Hall of Famer, right? So I can't really say he reminds me of Tony Gonzalez. So I'll just say he reminds me of a poor man's Tony Gonzalez. And then I'm reading the article of McCloughan, and there it is. He's comparing him. He said he reminded him of the way he moved of Tony Gonzalez, and he said, I don't even know Cameron Latu, but I bet she's a good basketball player. and Latu actually did play basketball, so just kind of shows what a sharp eye McCloughan has. He didn't see Darrell Luter, he didn't see Robert Beal, and he didn't see Deven Winters, but he loved the competitive fire of Braden Willis. Didn't think that Ronnie Bell was a professional receiver, which, I would share that philosophy as well. But to me, the best revelation, he did love Joey Fisher, the offensive lineman from Shepherd. Thinks he may be more of a guard, but he really liked him. But the guy that, my primary takeaway from that whole article was Jalen Graham. McCloughan loves Jalen Graham. And, this is a player that I really liked coming into the year. I saw him last year, and I thought, man, this guy really is natural movement, natural linebacker, just flows to the ball, just looks really comfortable out there. And sure enough, Scott McCloughan had glowing things to say about Jalen Graham. So I'll do a whole breakdown of that article a little bit later on. But I thought that was very interesting. It's like seventh-round pick, the last pick of the draft for the 49ers. And, Jalen Graham kind of looks like a secondary guy, but he plays like a linebacker, and he really does hit. He's got great instincts. He made a ton of plays for the Boilermakers. So, that right there is a guy that I think it's pretty interesting that McCloughan really loved Jalen Graham, because if Graham's a player, man, they are so unbelievably loaded at linebacker. If you look at the 49ers at linebacker this year, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, and I would put the third linebacker down as Marcelino McCrary Ball. The depth chart I'm looking at has Oren Burks, but then you've got 3 special teamers in Oren Burks, Curtis Robinson, and Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. And how many of those special team linebackers or linebackers where special teams is like their focus, how many of those guys do you go with? Now, Burks played, well from scrimmage, and Flanagan Fowles has as well. So, it's not like those guys can't play from scrimmage. Burks actually played a lot from scrimmage before he came to the Niners. But now you've drafted D. Winters. You've drafted Jalen Graham. You have Marcelino McCrary Ball coming back. And you have, you've got maybe 6 spots. That competition is going to be really, really intense, I think, to see exactly, who wins out there, who looks good. Do they wind up trading somebody? That one's going to be interesting to me. How exactly that comes down. By the way, Eric Froton, our guest, says he's restarting his computer, and then he'll be joining us in a matter of minutes. So we'll talk a little bit about the draft. This is going to be the last recap of the draft until next week when the Niners have the rookie minicamp, and at that point, get a chance to go down to Santa Clara and to see exactly their mini camp and them running around. I mean, they obviously don't wear pads, but you get a pretty good idea of at least who can move and who looks like a pro. And it's your first glimpse of them. And they don't do anything really intense, but you get an idea at least of how they look side by side. But I think when you look at this draft for the 49ers, there's a couple questions, right? It's the questions are, how much of a coverage guy is Jair Brown? Jair Brown is excellent in the box, really, really good against the run, big hitter. He's 208 pounds, but he plays like he's 225. I mean, he really hits like a truck, and he's a terrific in the box player, and he's got a lot of experience playing the deep middle in the cover 3. So, and God knows he did that. I mean, he had 10 interceptions, so he breaks on the ball exceptionally well, despite the fact he runs 4.65. But the deep speed of Jair Brown will be one of the main questions for the 49ers in this draft. And on that note, we welcome in Eric Froton from NBC. Eric, good to see you, man. How are you?
Good to see you too, Larry. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we talked to you before the draft, and we thought, hey, it would be only fitting to have you back on to kind of recap it. So, what'd you think of what the Niners did without me leading you in any direction?
Sure. Well, I heard you mentioning Jair Brown. So obviously they traded up to get him. A shortage of draft capital, with the exception of, kind of down the end of the board. First pick is at 87, of course, as you mentioned, Jair Brown. A guy I liked in what I perceived to be kind of not a robust safety class. So there wasn't a wide range of options, in my opinion, and I understand why a guy like, of course, John Lynch decided to go and trade up for Brown. So I don't have any problem with that. And as we kind of discussed off air, if John Lynch, who is one of the most prolific safeties in NFL history, has a particular, desire to trade up for somebody, I tend to believe his evaluation when it comes to the safeties. So if he thought that Jair Brown was impactful enough, then I feel comfortable with that. And I believe he was my safety, my number 5 safety, I believe I had. So, no problem there. I guess my questions, with the draft, it isn't the back end because Darrell Luter, cornerback, South Alabama, long, definitely a guy that I liked from the G5. No problem with that. Robert Beal, edge of Georgia. He didn't have quite the freakish athleticism you saw from Nolan Smith, but look, it's no problem with taking a shot there. D. Winters was an important field general for that TCU team, so they're taking between Georgia, TCU, a couple of impactful defenders for each of those programs. And I really liked Braden Willis, who's a guy I had a lot of exposure to in my particular college fantasy football drafts. You get him at 7, almost at the end of the 7th round there. I was fine with those. However, I like Willis. Cameron Latu was a surprise for me at that 101 pick in the 3rd round. I didn't really see him as being an impactful tight end in a draft where I thought there were some pretty good options. You already have, obviously, George Kittle. So, like, for him, taking Jake Moody You need a kicker. Okay, great. Patriots did the same sort of a thing. But if there's one pick, I would say Latu was the one where I think you probably could have got him a little further down and maybe could have addressed a more pressing need at that pick.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I didn't love it at the time, and but the more I watch film of him, the more I think, man, he's pretty athletic. I will say that. At 6'5", 245. Is he a blocker? Well, he's kind of an underpowered blocker at this point. I mean, he doesn't. He's you can see the athleticism, but he doesn't have a lot of power in his legs as a blocker. And then as a receiver, there's drops. So it's like you're looking at him and you're going, well, what is he? He's not. I don't see him excelling as a receiver, but he's pretty good after he catches it. He's pretty athletic. Scott McCloughan, I was just saying before you got on here, he wrote a piece. They wrote a piece in the Athletic when he broke down the draft. He kind of likes Latu. He had him in round 2 and compared him. Thought his bat, the fact that the way he moved to like a basketball player to like almost like a Tony Gonzalez. Obviously, Gonzalez is a Hall of Famer. Nobody's saying he's a Hall of Famer, but I think he was saying that he kind of reminds him of a basketball player, the way he moves so freely at that size. I see a lot of development here, and I agree with you. I thought there were better tight ends and better football players on the board, but clearly they like him a lot. I'm eager to see what he looks like this summer. My guess is he'll flash in camp.
Yeah, sure. And like you mentioned, it wasn't a really varied route tree he was running there in Alabama. He isn't really, wasn't stretching the seam in a way that you saw Dalton Kincaid used. But they're getting him little quick hits, and he does a good job, when he's given the opportunity. But my question with him is he's rather light for a tight end. He's
right.
6'4", he's 242. So he's right. I mean, if you're at 240, that's pretty much the threshold. You're below that, are you a tight end? So he's 242. He's not particularly big. Like you said, I don't see him blocking much. He did 14 bench reps. That's an 18th percentile score. That's and it is indicative of what you kind of see from him and how you're not going to be using him in line much. But, if he's not really a blocker and you're going to be using him in a move role, a flex role, he ran a 4.78 40-yard dash that is pedestrian, at best for 240 pounds. I mean, you want to see somebody under 4.7 if they're 240. And he didn't kind of clear that mark. So that's a red flag, sort of a concern for me, in addition to what obviously I see on tape. So I don't see this freak athlete, his 3-cone was a 44th percentile mark. Like, that's okay. But I just saw from the rest of this class where, I mean, there's opportunity cost that kind of goes into this. So you're looking at other guys I had above him that went behind him. Look at Darrell Washington was not particularly, he went a little, sooner than I thought. Zach Kuntz for the Jets, you got him in the 7th round. Guy was the most athletic tight end that has ever come out of the combine. And he was at Old Dominion. He got 119 targets in 2021, but he was hurt in 22. Will Mallory went in the 6th round. He's a guy who ran a 4.52. Like, okay, I'll take a look at Will Mallory, a good move tight end for Miami. Similarly, I'm probably not going to be blocking much. Tucker Kraft is a guy who is extremely athletic. I mean, we heard all about him throughout the process. Green Bay drafted him and Luke Musgrave. Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan as well. Payne Durham for Purdue. Like, there's just a lot of different guys. There's a lot of them that are very interesting. I kind of liked. And one of them's Braden Willis. And you got him too. But I just think with the depth at the position and, just looking at you, going through your roster, you probably could have used an offensive lineman, at least a swing tackle, it seems like, roster-wise. You could have shuffled one in there in that late 3rd round pick and had somebody in case of injury. You have a little bit of insurance. So, that's obviously just from a nitpicking point of view. I'm not a GM, but just my personal proclivities. But I didn't have a problem with the back end of their draft. And, obviously you're going to take some heat if you're going to take a kicker, with your 2nd pick in terms of draft capital wise. But that's That has a lot
how
to
good of
do
a
with
kicker
that.
is he, Eric? How good of a kicker is
Oh,
Moody?
I like Moody, and he was at the Shrine Bowl too, so I actually got to talk to him and watch him in person. Seems like talking to him, he's an even keeled kid. I liked him. Had a pretty good sense of humor, so like he seems like he's got the right temperament. But you watch him, and he was a absolute knockdown Big Ten kicker for years. And I know that Detroit certainly had interest in him because he's a local boy, and it was a little earlier than they wanted to invest. But plenty of teams were interested in Jake Moody. You saw the Patriots invest in a kicker because they're paying Nick Folk. They probably still will pay him a lot of money. And when you look at paying specialists, what the Patriots are, and obviously this kind of trickles down into San Francisco. Like, how much do you really want to invest in a kicker when you can get somebody in the third round, pay them on that rate for 3 years, including a fourth-year option, and be able to address other areas? So, like, I get that. I don't have a problem. But, I think that's a lot of where the criticism stems from around the industry, because if you're going to look at what they strictly brought home, well, they didn't have a pick until the 87th pick, and it's kind of easy to knock them down on the kicker front. But that is kind of low-hanging fruit when you're looking at the totality of it. I don't think it's they had a vision, they executed it, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. My thing on the kicker is just that you want a guy who you think can handle the pressure. And, this guy was perfect in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
His nickname is Money. Everybody around that program has total belief in him. That goes a great distance. If the guy winds up being your kicker for the next decade, great. But that, to me, seemed a little early. I would have preferred a trade back. You mentioned Braden Willis, that you really liked Braden Willis. And a lot of people are saying that. I guess the question is Braden Willis strong enough to stand up on the line of scrimmage? We know he's a good blocker in space, but can he be a good inline blocker? Because he's a good enough receiver, and he's a good enough his hands, his route running, his ability as a receiver is strong enough that if he actually could block defensive ends on the line of scrimmage, that would be a hell of a pick.
Sure, and that's very much in question, and that's reasonable because, again, 6'3", 241. That's certainly you guys have a type in that sense. It does have a bit of an H-back feel, which, frankly, I mean, he's very similar to Latu in that way. Both of them, dimensions, proportions-wise, very similar. In terms of Willis, I felt like with the turnover in staff at Oklahoma, Jeff Lebby coming in, who was the previous Ole Miss offensive coordinator alongside Lane Kiffin, and really, emphasizing the tight end usage in a way that kind of wasn't done a little bit once Andrews left under Lincoln Riley, and it caused the departure of Austin Stogner, who was an All-American tight end, who was the number 2-3 tight end in the 2019 class, and he actually went and transferred to South Carolina because of that sort of rift he had with Lincoln Riley and his usage and how they viewed him. So Stogner went over to South Carolina and now transferred back to Oklahoma, in large part because of how he saw Braden Willis was used, which was they were pretty creative in getting him out, and he was a legit weapon. It was Mims and it was Willis who were like the two most effective pass catchers in that Oklahoma, receiving room last year. And Mims went in the second round. You see Willis get taken. But, yeah, he feels H-back to me. Similar to Latu. I mean, neither of these guys are pounders. Neither of these guys are Darrell Washington, who are going to, 270 pounds, are going to be able to go and man up on a defensive end and draw a stalemate. That isn't going to happen with either of these two guys. They're going to get eaten alive by some of the best defensive ends. But this mobility, we've seen, San Francisco, you guys are creative with the way that you use Debo, with Kittle. I think they kind of have a vision here because they took two of the same guy that are H-back types. I'm interested to see how they're deployed.
I think there's a very good chance Willis may wind up playing some fullback. I mean,
Sure.
the number of different, the array of different passes that he caught, I thought really stood out to me watching that film. How about the last two guys? Ronnie Bell is interesting. They took two guys out of the Big Ten to finish up. both very productive. Ronnie Bell, the receiver from Michigan, Jalen Graham, the linebacker from Purdue. McLuhan really likes Jalen Graham.
Yeah.
I did too. I did too. And now I realize athletically he doesn't stand out. He's 220. The measurables are not incredible. But if you watch this guy play, he knows how to play. He's around the football. He makes a lot of tackles. And I've liked him for a couple of years, and I was encouraged to see Scott say that he really liked Jalen Graham. Ronnie Bell is interesting too because he's a very productive college receiver, but I just don't know if he's got enough to transition to the pros, if he's got enough upside athletically. It just doesn't seem like he's going to separate from anybody. But how do you see Ronnie Bell and Jalen Graham?
Yeah, especially we'll start with Bell there. Again, another Michigan guy, Moody and Bell. So, he certainly, and as you mentioned, going in there into the Big Ten, Bell was kind of more of a possession receiver from Michigan, and on a team that isn't really known for being, taking a lot of deep shots. Ardrell Anthony kind of filled that role for them last year. But Bell, he's, certainly somebody who succeeded in terms of against zone coverage. I liked his feel, for knowing where to be and having a pretty good concept of spatial awareness. Does all right in terms of defensive manipulation, getting open. He's crafty, but he doesn't have the high end speed that you really want to see from a prototype outside. I think, you could see him potentially slide in the slot. Juwan Jennings left for you guys. He was, more of the prototype big slot. Bell is more standard built. The 5'11", 190, is solidly built in that sense where he can take a shot, but isn't a field stretcher. So that really, I look at his role with San Francisco. I mean, he's going to have to grow into it. You guys have a pretty darn good receiving room there. And I'm interested to see how he kind of fits in, but I think it would probably be in those 3-4 wide receiver sets and in passing situations to get his feet wet and see if he can acclimate.
The undrafted thing is it's like a lot of people, your first notion is to scoff and be like, undrafted free agents. I mean, these guys weren't good enough to be drafted at all. And it's like, yeah, but then you realize 17 of these guys have made it to the Hall of Fame, including Kurt Warner recently. And the 49ers, I mean, Azeez Al-Shaair, Kevin Givens, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., Nick Mullins. I mean, they've had a bunch of guys. Kevin Givens. I mean, they've had a bunch of players who've made their roster and been significant players who were undrafted. So you always look at this list. I'll throw the names out there. If any of them jump out to you, feel free. Joey Fisher, offensive lineman from Shepherd, ran 4.90, which was an incredible 40, and then put up 40 reps on the bench. Kind of a short arm guy, though. Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? The Jets supposedly looked at him as a center. They got him. They gave him like $150,000 guaranteed, so obviously they like him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Does he stand out to you at all?
Well, dude, Shepherd in general, I think, that program, which is, it's a D2 program. It's in, somewhere in West Virginia, I think. Right. Who knows? But Ronnie Bell, who not Ronnie Bell, Ronnie Brown, excuse me, not the Auburn running back, but a slightly built sort of satellite back return guy at the NFLPA. He looks like one of the better running backs at the NFLPA Bowl. I think he got picked up on a team. Shepherd guy, obviously Tyson Bagent.
Right, went to the Bears.
Absolutely, went to the Bears. Another Shepherd guy, and Fisher was blocking for Bagent. Actually, I talked to Bagent at the combine, and I talked to his dad, renowned multi-time world arm wrestling champion, Tyler, and he was very complimentary of Fisher specifically. Obviously mentioned Ronnie, but about Fisher, about his work ethic, about his commitment, about he's a big team guy and things of that nature. So like, it's good to see a kid coming from. It's a tight knit program. Those guys are all pulling for each other. Those guys are all talented, and all of them ended up on a practice squad. It isn't often you see D2 schools doing that. So he's coming from a damn good developmental program, even though he's down, coming from a small school, certainly has potential in the interior, especially with his movement skills. Like you said, his athleticism, especially you see centers have to get out wide and they have to get out there quick. So, I would think if he can handle the snapping portion, that could be a fit for him.
4.90 I mean, that's fast for,
That's fast for
300 pounds and 40 reps. We'll see. I mean, his film is awesome, but that's what happens when you look at future NFL tackles or guards against Division II guys. They oftentimes look awesome. Avery Young, defensive back from Rutgers, didn't run a great 40 time. If there's one position that the 40 time is not as much of a concern to me, it's safety, because it is an instinctive spot, and it's a lot about how do you read it, do you react right, how field fast are you. Avery Young might be a little too slow, but man, he sure hits.
Yeah, and especially with it seems like, as I mentioned, this safety class, it's more of like the corner / dual high, single high type guys that have the movement skills are the ones that this class is replete with. I do think obviously Jair Brown can hit and everything too, but he can move, so like he's a mobile guy. The real physical box safeties that we've seen in previous classes, I think, have been better than the one we have here. And that's why, there's opportunity for a guy like Young, because there aren't a lot of, I just wasn't enamored with the box safety, the physical downhill safety class. So that's certainly possible. A guy like Max Melty, speaking of Rutgers, like the two of them, both had pretty good tape in spurts. They had some ups and some downs. When I was watching the Rutgers film, I love Schiano, former NFL head coach for the Bucs, former Patriots, longtime defensive coordinator, and somebody that is widely respected for his defensive acumen, how he develops defensive players. So it's it certainly speaks to how they were developed, and that's something I like to see as well. Going to a program that has bona fide NFL, credentials, that has developed guys. I like Schiano a lot. You saw an improvement from Rutgers, and frankly, Young and Melton, those two guys, even though they weren't drafted, were a big part of that resurgence.
They got a Hawaii offensive lineman, Ilm Manning, who I guess started 40 games plus at left tackle, and some NFL scouts think he's going to start in the NFL at guard or center, but definitely a pretty athletic offensive lineman. They got a couple interesting running backs, too. The UTEP running back, Ronald Awat, who I think runs sub 4.5 and 215 pounds. He really looked athletic, running away from people. And then they got Kalen Layburn from Marshall, who had a hugely productive year for the Thundering Herd. I mean, the guy had 300 carries, and former five-star back at Florida State who transferred to Marshall. Is already graduated with a degree, but both those running backs are intriguing. Have you seen any of Awat or Layburn?
Oh, yeah, plenty of both of them. All college fantasy football guys. So I have Kalen Layburn, who prior to last year, I like to refer to as Kalen LeBorn to run, in a little, play on words with the great Bruce Springsteen song. But yeah, Layburn, you look what he did last year at Marshall, and you talk about programs that develop at the G5 level. I mean, look no further than Marshall. We've got a star-studded list of alumni coming from that particular program. And when you look at Layburn, excuse me, I keep wanting to say LeBorn to run. Layburn, Rasheen Ali led the NCAA in rushing in 2021. Or he was like top 5. He was way up there, and he was dinged up early in the season in 2022. So when he was hurt, Layburn was the guy that transferred from a Florida State over to there, and Florida State had a real, he wasn't gonna penetrate that backfield because they had Trey Benson, who will probably be like a second, third round pick next year at running back. They also had Lawrence Toafili, who is smaller, but he's a home run satellite back type, as well as the Kansas State, guy who transferred over to Kansas State, Treshaun Ward, who will be starting for the Wildcats this year. So that backfield was loaded. So Layburn had to get out of there. It was just that simple. So he had to he transfers down to Marshall, and he holds down that running back spot, expertly until Rasheen Ali comes back and they kind of share it for the last few games. But man, Laborin, like you said, physical. The kid, if you look at him in pads, he looks like an Adonis. I mean, he looks the part. He has the ability to dodge tackles, and he runs physically. It's just a matter of, can he come in a running back room that is proven with Elijah Mitchell, as you mentioned, Mostert, Tyrion Davis-Price. They saw something in him last year, went up, got him. So, Shanahan has a type, and he has something he's looking for. And there's absolutely opportunity behind CMC in that room where if he can go and establish himself, land on the practice squad, he could get an opportunity. I do like Laborin. With AWatt, UTEP sort of switched to a more up-tempo offense this year. It was more passing-oriented. Gavin Hardison throwing to Tyron Smith. I think Tyron Smith got, let's say, like top 5, maybe 5th or 6th in terms of targets in the entire NCAA. So that was actually a UTEP program that was very, very, very bad when Ronald AWatt got there. Pitiful. And actually scraped himself up to become like a bowl-worthy, potentially like a decent team who could actually play. And Ronald AWatt stuck around for that whole genesis. He didn't just go and transfer out. He was a tough running back, as discussed, program guy. Did have like a little bit of competition for carries in terms of like this year because he's not a prototype all-around perfect back, but he certainly does have the ability to contribute. So like both of those backs, while I do prefer, from my film stuff, from having watched both of them, I think LeBurn has a little more upside. Both of them just fine in terms of bringing them into camp and seeing what they got.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the Niners have such a great eye for it that it almost begs to take a serious look at them this summer. How about North Dakota State? I don't know if you caught any of them this year, but we had their D lineman on the channel yesterday, Spencer Wagee, and this guy is intriguing as hell. I mean, my goodness, he's a defensive end. He's 300 pounds. He had a 1.66 10-yard split. To put that in perspective, Kalijah Cansey had a 1.64. And Kalijah Cansey is like considered one of the freak of nature movers at 280 pounds. This guy's 300 pounds and played defensive end and has a 1.66 and was collegiate, very productive player. I think the Niners may have, we'll see. I mean, we'll see because it's a big step up. And same way it was a big step up for Trey Lance, it's a big step up for everybody going from North Dakota State to the pros. And the offensive linemen are bigger, stronger, faster. But 300 pounds moving like that, getting up the field in a wide 9. And I asked him, I said, where do you fit? He said 3 tech or the wide 9, or he could go, 0 over the nose. He's been used in all those fashions at North Dakota State. Have you seen Wagee at all?
It's interesting because his dimensions are similar. You don't see a lot of 280-pound plus defensive ends. It's pretty much like Boogie Basham. A couple of years ago from Wake Forest was definitely one that comes to mind at 285 that stayed on the edge, and he's over there in Buffalo as an edge setter. And it's kind of the same mold that the Patriots are going with Keon White this year, where they took him at 46. It's the same thing. Like when I was evaluating both of these guys, I didn't look obviously as much at Wagee as I did at Keon White because, oh my gosh, I only have so much time. But
sure.
When I did, sort of just go through that quick evaluation process, that's kind of what I was thinking. Is I'm like, this guy could slot in a way similar to how I envision Keon White with the incredible athleticism. And to put it apples to apples, right? At almost $3 bills, Wagee 1.66. That is a ridiculous 10-yard split. Keon White ran a 1.69. Okay, 10-yard split. He's 285. He's not 300. He's 285.
Right.
As an edge, and that's a 93rd percentile score at 285. So that should put that in perspective. That is an incredible burst and get off that is really hard to recreate. And where I see White and when I think I can see Wagee is guys like that. In rundowns, you go and you put him on the edge and you say, all right, well, good luck overpowering this guy, Mr. Left Tackle, kicking out to try to take out Spencer Wagee. Like he's going to drop that anchor. He's going to hold that position. And the running back's going to have to go right or left, but he's not going to be able to go through a crease, And, you could use him in that wide 9 with 7, But then go and drop him into 3-tech and during a passing down and just say, all right, kid, go get it. Get after it. Use that burst. Use that jump that you got. Knife through, you're going to be able to try to take on 2 guys. Just try to knife through that and just let them loose. Don't let them, don't think. Just go. And that's really the value in a guy that has that sort of athleticism at that size is the edge setting ability while also, in the passing, the versatility, kicking him inside to penetrate. There's always a place for a guy like that.
Yeah. No, and I asked him, I said, what would you say your greatest strength is? And, he says, my motor, and I asked a buddy of mine who rolled into Fargo earlier this year. He goes, yeah, that kid's motor is incredible. So you got a motor, you're 300 pounds, you work hard, you can play inside or outside, and you've got a 1.66 10-yard split. The Niner scout, whoever made that signing, probably is earning his paycheck. Randall Riley says, "What's Eric's take on Beal Jr.?" Yeah, we kind of glossed by Beal Jr., who had a very impressive sack in the national championship game against TCU, where he beat the right tackle and got in on the quarterback. Beal, a lot of people don't realize this. Beal Jr. was a 5-star. He ran 4.4, just like Nolan Smith, or did Nolan run sub 4.4?
Lightning speed.
But Beal also led the Dogs in sacks the year that Trayvon Walker went number 1. He was the guy who led them in sacks. So obviously this guy's got a lot of talent. Kirby Smart says, man, if you just let him get up the field and don't make him drop and cover because he's a fish out of water doing that, this is what this guy does. He sets the edge. He burns the edge. He's a straight ahead guy. He's not going to drop and cover and be some kind of multi-defensive look guy. He's not a 3-4 outside backer. In other words, he's a 4-3 defensive end and maybe kind of an undersized guy, right? Because he's 250. Yeah. Yep. What do you see with Beal? What was his issue? Why couldn't he play more football there?
Power. He's not a power guy, but he's a speed guy. So what you can do with Beal is, like you're saying, you can line him up. And in passing downs, I see him as a situational pass rusher, and you can let him pin his ears back and use that speed to really pressure out running the hoop. A 4.48. Obviously, I mean, Nolan Smith he's pretty much set the record at 4.39 for, a 40-yard dash out of an edge. That's insane. But dude, 4.48. Hey, that's absolutely insane. So it's not like that's a knock that he didn't run a 4.39. He has real legitimate speed, burst, get off. That's his thing. His hands are good, but once the problem is you get your hands on him and you see tackles envelop him, kind of a thing. It's being able to get off that initial contact when he does get stuck. It's hard for him to work off of that, and you see that in testing. 14 bench reps at 247 is an singular eighth percentile mark. That is terrible for an edge. 30-inch vertical for a guy who runs a 4.48 is just unnatural. It's unbalanced. Like usually you get at least a 35 if you're doing something like that. So that kind of shows the lack of power in the lower body as well. And it shows up. I mean, that's why he's here in the 5th round. Not a lot of guys that are doing that at running a 4.48 are available here. It's because he's probably pigeonholed as a passing down specialist, but one that, does have value. He does one thing special, and he's fast, and he's quick off the snap, and he can pressure you that way, but he's not going to cross the face of a lineman and overpower you.
Couple last ones before we let you go. One of my favorite guys when I watched the film of the undrafted guys, and I saw him during the college football season, but I just always kind of forgot about him and figured, well, he'll probably go in the 5th round, and and sure enough, he didn't get drafted at all. And that's the number 5 for the Longhorns, the corner return guy, Deshaun Jameson. And I don't get why this guy wasn't drafted. I mean, he's got great break on the ball. He's a dynamic return man. I mean, he's not good. He's awesome as a return guy. And he's small, but he's not tiny. I mean, there's 5'8" corners in this league. He's 5'10", 185. But if you watch the film, I mean, running backs running east-west, he'll come firing up through a hole, go low, bring him to the ground in space, all by himself. I mean, I thought that was an incredible get, getting Deshaun Jameson. I expect him to make the team. What? Tell us what you think of Jameson.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting where you point out the return skills, and that's something that seemed like really pushed a couple of guys up the board that I didn't have particularly graded highly as receivers. Guys like Darius Davis for TCU,
Right.
Incredible, excellent return man. I mean, that got him drafted, I think, in the 5th round. I didn't see that coming. But so I think it's kind of a Trey Tucker as well, another guy a slot guy, receiver, good return man, but he got taken before his counterpart there for Cincinnati. So Tyler Scott. So that skill set certainly did push guys up the board, in my opinion. And it's interesting it didn't apply to Jameson as much, perhaps because he's a cornerback and not a wide receiver. They can kind of line up in the slot in full wide. So certainly you did see he fell out. He's not a great athlete, but like you said, his movement skills, and particularly like you're saying, he doesn't have the high end, like he can get stacked, you'd see that a little bit on film. But in terms of like his short area, his breaks, he's good on breaks, and if you could put him in a slot situation where he's not going to be challenged as much vertically, I think you could see him, having a role in a nickel format. And as discussed, with a lot of the safeties this year, a lot of the safeties are like converted nickel backs who can teams are really valuing that ability to cover slot and still be able to kind of be physical and come up and hit the run. So it's possible he could kind of carve out like a little niche in that sort of a role, if that's something that I'm not as familiar with San Francisco's defensive alignments, but if that's something that, is a priority for you there, that's what I'd see him as being. I don't think he holds up on the outside. And I think that's why, it was a big factor. But if he can show that nickel ability to go with the physicality that we see him stepping up in run support, that has value.
It's so funny because we live in a highlight reel world now when it comes to, everything, right? Twitter and social media and a clip here and a highlight there. And it's hard not to get overwhelmed or wowed when you see some incredible athletic feat. I don't know. Do you remember the guy who jumped out of the swimming pool? He was like in basically just a waist deep water, but he jumped out of the swimming pool and he landed on the deck on his feet. And people were like, wow, look at that. That was unbelievable.
Oh, I do remember that. Who I forget who it was.
I forget
you guys
who it
signed
was.
him, I assume? Or
No. So the 49ers did sign Isaiah Winstead. And Isaiah Winstead, from the wide receiver from East Carolina, is big-bodied wide receiver. He ran in the 4.7s, and he didn't get drafted. And what he did was he posted a 75-second highlight reel of him doing just field work, not with no pads, but just his stop and start and explosive quickness in this field work was so impressive in video that suddenly it was like, hey, this guy suddenly became a hot name. Anyway, the 49ers wind up signing Isaiah Winstead. What do you think of Winstead? I mean, good size. And if you saw the video that he posted, he is really quick and explosive. And his stop and start, very shifty. At that size, it's great body control. But then there's the 4.7 40. He was very productive, though. I think he caught like 88 balls. He had a huge year for the East Carolina Pirates. Can he play in the NFL?
Yeah, wildly productive. Absolutely. And he's had, you remember with Isaiah Winstead, he's had a kind of a circuitous route here where he started off at Norfolk State.
Right.
Eventually transferred, shortly thereafter transferred over to Toledo. And, that Toledo team led by Jason Candle, their head coach, has been there since, I think it's year 11 for him. Very innovative offensive play caller type. Won, I think offensive coordinator of the year at some point when he was there. But longtime Toledo guy, very good, innovative offensive coach. And he did he was able to do a nice job in kind of showcasing himself, but he wasn't ultra productive in the MAC like you'd like to see him, still had a 51% catch rate, but he went to Eastern Carolina and he was working with Holton Ahlers, who is a guy I got to watch at the NFLPA Bowl. And I think Winstead was there too. He was there at the Shrine. And, Ahlers is certainly, a better thrower than what he was dealing with there over at Toledo at the time. And it certainly made a difference because, like you said, 130 targets, that's an elite usage rate when it comes to college football. We only had 12 games to really work with. And just doing a nice job of being a vertical threat, because that's really what he is. He's not going to – he's miscast as an inside guy. He is going to be like split wide, and you're going to want to take a couple of shots with him because even though he's got that 4.7, he does a good job separating in the top of the route tree. He is crafty with his footwork. He does a nice job on the outs and defensive manipulation. So he has craftiness to him, and he was able to do that at the G5 level with, a fifth-year quarterback in Ahlers, who, while he has kind of a funky hitch in his throwing motion, he's good, solid G5 quarterback, and that made a difference in terms of his
lefty.
Production.
Yeah, the hefty lefty.
A lefty. He reminded me of Tebow when you're watching him, and he's kind of stocky.
Right.
He's got a kind of a wind-up delivery that he's coming at you with, but he's a good, solid, gritty, college quarterback who I thought was probably the best QB at the NFLPA Bowl when I saw him there, even though it's a low-level bowl. I thought he was pretty good. So Winstead does have that ability to win, and he's a contested catch guy. I mean, you got to understand, of his 130 targets and his 88 receptions, 39 of those were contested. So he isn't a big separator. He can create opportunities for him to be in position to make the catch, and he does a good job using his body. But, there's only so much you can do at 4.7. And it's funny, Juwan Jennings, you mentioned before. Juwan Jennings was that kind of guy. He was like a 4.65, I want to say. But he's big. And, he was a big slot that they'd use him at Tennessee, and he was good at shielding defenders. He's good at using his body. And that's what kept him around for a few years. He's gone now, but that sort of skill set, I guess I'd kind of, if I had to use a comp for the San Francisco fans, it would be a Juwan Jennings type where if he can learn to embrace the fact he's not going to be beating you deep and that, he can maybe slide in that slot role with that footwork that we did see on that little showcase that he had, then perhaps that's the role he could fit in the offense.
And maybe a year from now he could be the replacement for Jennings. I will say this: so much is made about these times and these scores and 3-cone and this and that. A lot of times it's like how fast are you on the field, and then can you maintain your concentration? Can you catch the ball, run those routes against tight coverage? Because that's all you're going to get in the NFL is tight coverage. So, there's a lot of guys that are bothered by bodies around them, whether they be quarterbacks in the pocket or receivers, and they need that separation to catch the ball. Other guys can catch in the crowd, and so those numbers, how you do catch, those contested catches do matter. One name that was linked to them, and he's not on their list right now. I'm not sure why, but we'll see. He's not on anybody else's list that I saw just now. Is Jadakiss Bonds, which is one of the great names.
Oh, yeah.
He was a Hampton wide receiver, 6'4", also ran in the high 4.4s, just right below 4.5. But, I mean, the production, 34 touchdowns in 40 games. Granted, it's Hampton, but this guy was a great basketball player. Anything that you know about Jadakiss Bonds? Do you think he's a legitimate NFL player?
Well, I actually got to see Jadakiss at the Shrine Bowl. He was there, and believe it or not, he had a little bit of buzz coming out of there.
He made that amazing one-handed catch, right?
Yeah, he made a great one-handed catch, and he made a couple other plays too. I think he showed up on a couple of my highlight reels that I put out. Because I put out numerous highlight reels out of that the Shrine Bowl, but I know that like personally watching him, I remember a couple of big plays that he made. And while he maybe didn't have the total consistency where he was beating guys left and right, when he did get the opportunity downfield to make a play, it felt like he was making it. You know what I mean? So That was a pretty good, decent. There were some good corners that he was going up against in those practices then ended up getting drafted. Like Terrell Smith was out there, Minnesota. I think he went 5th round. I thought he was probably late 3rd round, early 4th caliber corner. Starling Thomas, who's preferred UDFA. I think he got signed. He got a good bonus. But several guys that he was going up against were pretty darn good corners, and he was having success over the top, despite the fact that he's not really a burner, but he's crafty, and he has good hands. His ball tracking is very good. It's just a matter of, can he make up for probably what would be considered average athleticism for his size, despite a flair for the dramatics, and that's kind of why he's not in camp right now, I think.
Last one. I was talking to Jordan Elliott from Niners Nation, and he did a lot of work talking to different people about guys that they drafted or acquired this week. And he was talking to somebody about the TCU backer, Deven Winters. And I guess one of the coaches came in and said to Deven Winters, like, hey, I need to know who's the guy here? Who's like, who's the alpha here? And it was like, Deven Winters was like, I am. That's just classic. But, I mean, that's what you want to see. And to me, of all the picks, he was the guy that I think I probably am most confident is going to be good, just from the standpoint of I watched him 4 times this year. I don't know what he runs, but he's fast enough. I don't know how big he is, but he's big enough. You know what I mean? It's like this guy plays fast. He just comes rallying up. His pre-snap recognition, he's got to be doing his film work because he recognizes things way before everybody else. He shoots gaps. I didn't see him get burned that much. There's a lot to like there. I mean, I would be shocked if he didn't make the team and not only make the team, but be a huge factor out of this draft.
Heart and soul of the TCU defense. I mean, he was in the middle. He was the linebacker. He was making all the calls. And, yeah, I believe he said that in that room because you see the way he plays. And, look, like you're saying, his fits are clean. His diagnosis. He knows where the play is going. And he's not a giant Nick Bolton, Leo Chenal, 250-pound downhill linebacker who was built like a 90s guy. Like that ain't his thing. He moves. He ran a 4.49. He's 5'11", 227, but he is a hard-nosed guy who is coming right up in those gaps, taking on blocks, and making plays, and making a lot of them. If you go and you watch their run-up, the TCU magical season that they had leading up to the national championship game, Deven Winters was making double-digit tackles every game. He was the backbone of that second line. And in terms of from a performance point of view, yeah, Deven Winters is ready to go. The questions will be, I mean, is he going to be a downhill thumper at 227, 5'11 at the NFL? What is his role? Is it, he's not particularly great with his lateral movement. If it's downhill and he's triggering, he's great. It just matters of how it'll all file in. Like you said, he's a cerebral guy. He's a captain. And he obviously proved his mettle this year on the field to where I'm not worried about how he fits in.
I'm not saying he's Derek Brooks, but I mean, this guy's, he flies around and makes plays and he sees it and he diagnoses correctly. We'll let you go. The talk now, Niner fans are losing their mind this morning because Sam Darnold was seated courtside with George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey at the Warrior-Laker game last night. And there's just an awful lot of people who are just like, can't handle the idea that Sam Darnold may be the Niners' quarterback over Trey Lance. There's a lot of pro Trey Lance thought here. What did you think of Darnold coming out, when you were seeing him at SC, and you're based down in Southern California? Do you think Darnold with the 49ers, with Shanahan and all these weapons, suddenly, has this career renaissance? Or is Sam Darnold have an issue that you've noticed? I mean, all I can see is that he has a little bit of elongated delivery, and I think that may have led to a few of these interceptions. But other than that, nothing really stands out. What do you think of Darnold?
Well, he's always had the big arm. I mean, I don't think that anybody, denies that this guy can uncork a football pretty well. It's just, I guess, that conceptually making his reads, being able to handle the pressure. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. I mean, if you I know Kruegs, man. The fans, I like to look at that direct from behind view, when we're looking at tape, and especially when you're doing the QB film. And it kind of, I think it helps fans to see. It's easy when you're looking from the side to be like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. When you see it from the back looking out in the QB's vision point, that is a very hectic, it is chaos all around you. And a real trait of QBs is just that calmness and just being able to know, like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be all right. My eyes are downfield. I just feel like it was a case where Darnold wasn't as trusting, and he just never seemed to me. And I didn't watch as much of him in the NFL as obviously I did in college, because that's my beat. But it just didn't seem when I watched him that he was just ever really comfortable being there and just everything happening around them. He just didn't look settled to me. So, sure, a little bit of a long delivery, but he's got the big arm. And, God, I mean, if Kyle Shanahan is going to tell you that this is the guy that he thinks can do it, okay. I mean, look what he did with Purdy. You don't have to look too far in the past to see what this man has done with QBs that weren't the most physically talented. See Jimmy G. No offense, Jimmy G, but I mean he's not Peyton Manning, So
you think Darnold is a better talent than Jimmy G or not?
Oh yeah, I think physically he's obviously got a better arm though. I mean, definitely Sam in that respect, but that's not all QB play, as we all know. Can he handle everything that's happening around him? But when you're put in a position to succeed, and you have a guy that is proved to be a whisperer, like Kyle Shanahan, and he can, in a similar way to what Bill Belichick does with defenses, be able to say, look, just do your job. Just do your job. You just do this. This is what you do. Stay this. Don't try to get out of your lane. Stay in it. And I think that's sort of a whittled down approach, by just saying, here are your responsibilities, get to know your responsibilities, and then let the game plan take over and let it, unfold for you. Let the defense dictate what you do. And that was what Purdy did so well conceptually. I thought he was so smart. And he was at Iowa State. He did all this. And I know we talked about that, when I was on before, is just how, he wasn't able to kind of be unleashed as much the last 2 years that he was there at Iowa State, because they had Breece Hall and they had, a pair of fifth. They had a whole line that was back both years, these last 2 years, because they got the extra COVID year. So they're there for COVID and the whole line's there. And you get a freebie and you get all these giant farm boys being like, yeah, okay, cool. We'll take the other one. We'll try to go and we'll take down the Big 12. And that's what they were trying to do. And they were just blasting Breece Hall right down other teams' throats and playing hard deep. They zigged in a high-flying Big 12 and went hard. And with Purdy not getting to show his full capabilities, and then he was put in position and he could. So I think that you could certainly see a seasoned guy like Darnold with a big arm, as long as he can get over those tendencies that he's developed, then maybe he can.
Good stuff, man. Outside of the Niners, was there some big winner or loser? Was there any team this weekend that you said, you know what, man, they stood out, they were great, or they stood out, they missed the mark altogether?
Well, I want to stay on the good side of the San Francisco fans here, so I will not go down the route of many, which is, praising Howie Roseman. I know you don't want to hear Howie Roseman's name anymore from Philadelphia. Well, he's so great. I know. But
a lot of people like the Eagles draft.
Man, it's fair. They did a good job. They're smart with how they do these things. But I'll go with the AFC, so I can try to remain, in good favor of the San Francisco faithful. I liked what Indianapolis did, based on what they had. Fourth pick, they didn't panic and take Will Levis. That would have been a catastrophe. But they take an extremely talented, physically as good as it gets from, a projection standpoint, Anthony Richardson. Yeah, I watched a ton of Anthony Richardson, and I was nonplussed with his footwork, with his decision-making. Again, is that being settled? He is clearly not comfortable in the pocket, but Man, when that guy has to be off script and his arm is huge and he can run a 4.44 and the way he breaks pocket and like he's running and he's almost like he's the size of Derrick Henry. He's Derrick Henry running down the field at 4.44 and guys are just bouncing off of him. So, I just see the potential of him being dangerous. It's going to take time, but that's great. Take him. Down the board, Julius Brents, a big 6'3", 213 physical cornerback who really it has a mean streak, and I like that in him. Josh Downs at the 79th pick in the third round. He's a guy that I had as my wide receiver 7 that I thought was pretty clearly a second-round pick. Some people had in the first. Blake Freeland, BYU offensive tackle, was a 98th percentile athlete, incredible movement skills. Like, good luck beating him around the edge. Great kick set. Adetomowa Adebari for Northwestern, he absolutely dominated the entire Senior Bowl. 6'2".
Why did he fall? So, and who got him? Detroit?
No, Indianapolis. Yeah, that's why
Colts,
I like Indy.
Colts.
The number 110 pick in the 4th round.
Yeah, the Niners took the kicker. The Niners took Moody and Latu over Adetomowa Adebari. I mean, my goodness, I think Adebari would have been nice.
4th, 110 overall. Freeland and Adebari. Freeland was number 106. If you need a swing tackle, which I think, it might not have been a bad idea. You could have both those guys, and you're looking at it and saying, oh, Latu and Moody could have been Freeland and Adebari. And, I know that obviously they might not fit the scheme or whatever. And Adebari's 6'2". So he isn't, he's coming from a position of low leverage, but he doesn't have the long arms that you really covet in some of these situations from an edge perspective or a rush perspective. But man, that guy was great at the Senior Bowl, and he tested like an absolute animal, 96th percentile athlete. Like everything that I look at, I say 4th round Freeland, 4th round Adebari, give it to me. Also, a guy I mentioned, Will Mallory went in 5th round to them. I liked him. Evan Hull, a running back from Northwestern, 2 Northwestern guys. He was awesome out of the backfield. I mean, he is a prototype satellite back, incredible athlete to boot. I was thinking 176, that's a great pick. So I think they did a nice job with their drafts, and I gave them an A.
Eric, tell people if they want to check out your stuff that you write on college football. What's the next thing you're doing? I caught you on Roto World, but tell people how they can find your stuff.
Yeah, you can get me at NBC Sports, NBC Sports Edge, Roto World. I put forth a pretty, if you want draft grades, I got that. Went through every position group and had a pretty, robust write-up on all of these players. If you want to have a little more in-depth player report, you'll be able to find those on NBC Sports Edge. As far as what's going on moving forward, I look forward to, going through the freshman class coming up because, like I said, I'm a college football guy. I'm worried about the 133 teams in D1A FBS. So I'll be diving into all those programs. I'll probably have a college fantasy football rankings out soon. I will definitely be diving into the freshman class. I cannot wait to do that because I'll be looking forward to my freshman drafts for Campus to Canton, developmental leagues, as well as college fantasy football leagues. So I'm ready to dive into the 2023 college football season.
Eric, thanks for the time, man. Good to wrap with you. Rookie minicamp is coming up next week. And hopefully we can get you back this year and talk a little football when the college football season begins. Loved your breakdown on the draft and the lead up to it. And thanks for joining us on the Krueg Show. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Krueg. Appreciate you, buddy.
Have a good one. The great Eric Froton from NBC. He's good. He's really good and does some outstanding work. Thanks to Randall Riley for becoming a YouTube member. We always give them a nice clap. Thank you, Randall. A couple last thoughts after this, but first a mention of our sponsors on the Krueg Show. We're brought to you by Pig in a Pickle and New York Style Italian Sausage, as well as Telmetrics.co.
So New York style sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, we're coming down the home stretch on the Krueg Show, and I'm smiling because I've been reading Twitter during the spot there. Everybody's just back and forth on this Sam Darnold thing, and it's pretty funny because Darnold went to the Warrior game last night, and he was sitting there with Kittle and McCaffrey, and then just a lot of people are like, why are they buddies with him? Why is he part of the club? Why, losing their mind. Then you get Akash put out a tweet today saying that Geno Smith pre-Seahawks was 57% completion percentage, 28 touchdowns, 36 picks, 72.4 rating. And that when he went to the Seahawks, after that point, he's completed 69% of his passes, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a 101.1 quarterback rating. That obviously Geno was way, way, way better with Seattle than he was prior to being with Seattle with the Jets. And he's like, Sam Darnold pre-49ers, 59.7%, 61 touchdowns, 55 picks, 78.2 rating. And he says, I keep wondering why Darnold can't revamp his career in the best situation he's been in, like Geno. And Akash is a very reasonable guy. That's a very reasonable point. Now, nobody's saying it's going to happen. Geno Smith is the outlier, which why it was such an incredible story. But it's a fair question. Why can't Sam Darnold, surrounded by a better play caller with better weapons, have a career renaissance? Is he going to do it? I don't know. But I retweeted Akash's stat because I thought it was interesting. And I said, will Darnold jumpstart his career like Geno? 49er training camp is going to be riveting. Daily drama about Darnold versus Lance with Purdy's return looming will drown out every other subplot. And just, lots and lots and lots of comments. People, all kinds of people just jumping in on their, oh my God, Sam Darnold this, Sam Darnold that, anything but Trey. You don't like Trey. They don't like Trey. This, oh my God. Guess what? It's all going to be, decided on the football field this summer. And we're going to get a chance to see it. And it's going to be a little bit of a daily circus because it's going to be like, who looked better? And then you think the people that, proliferated camp stats had a bunch going last year. Oh, my goodness. You mix in an actual quarterback debate between a guy and like Sam Darnold, who's people like have already decided universally bad, and Trey Lance, who's like there's so much invested in his future and good, bad, otherwise. Then you got Purdy looming. Is he going to be involved in the mix? Will he be there? Will he not be there? Camp stats. Get ready for more and more camp stats. Brash Cat. Hashtag camp stats. Oh, my God. There's nothing worse than camp stats. Do you realize that blankety blank was 6 of 7 yesterday? What? What do you mean he was 6 of 7? Was there a game? No. Was there a scrimmage? No. Was there another team involved? No. Oh, you mean so against his own defense in scripted plays that everybody's got the script for, that the defense, he did this against this defense. Okay. I mean, there's so it's like polling while breaking like three of the fundamental rules of polling, and then trying to read something into the poll. Well, I did a poll, and but I broke all the rules of polling, and but here's my results. So I can't wait. I cannot wait for this summer. It's going to be great. Every day. I thought Darnold looked good. What do you mean you thought he looked good? I thought Trey airmailed that pass. What do you mean he airmailed that pass? It's just going to be an absolute three-ring circus. It's going to be awesome. And it's just, have the best man win. Let's break it all down. And then ultimately, it's nothing's going to matter, by the way. It's like whoever looks best in minicamp, it doesn't matter. Blankety blank looks better than blanky blank in training camp. It doesn't matter. Blankety blank looks better than blankety blank in the preseason. It doesn't matter. Everything's not going to matter. And then all of a sudden it's just going to be like, and the starter is door number 3. So anyway, it will be interesting. Is Brock going to get healthy? Is he going to be part of the mix? We're going to find out in about a month. What his trajectory looks like. And then, all I'll say, people say, well, what do you, buddy of mine, he's like, dude, I need your takeaway on Sam Darnold sitting courtside with Kittle and McCaffrey. I go, oh, yeah, here. Here's my take. Somebody had tickets, and they went and sat and watched the game together. That's my take. Though I did think it was funny that Klay Thompson came over to chat with them. And he came over. Who did he dap up first? Even though you got George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, who does he know though? He knows Sam Darnold. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, here comes Klay Thompson. He's going to dap up Sam Darnold, and it's like, hey, Sam Darnold gets a little more cred with the boys because, man, he knows Klay. So that was interesting. But they're both spent time in Southern Cal, and they probably know the same people, and who knows. But I thought that was kind of interesting. It's like, yeah, man, I know Klay. Yeah, Sam's cool, man. He knows Klay. Oh, this is going to be great. And then the pushback for Sam sitting there. It's like, what? Why he can't go to the basketball game with those guys? It immediately it's like the Niners have a clique and Trey's not in it. Sam's in it. That's why Sam's going to get the job, because Sam's in the clique. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Guys have friends on the team, but Trey's got a bunch of friends too. It's not like Trey doesn't have friends. Trey's got friends. So I feel like this is like 6th grade. But Sam's in with the cool kids, and that's why he's going to get picked first at recess. Sam's going to be the quarterback on the recess team. It will be decided. I mean, look at it this way. The one thing that doesn't add up is all the people saying that Sam Darnold will beat out Trey Lance this summer, because there's no evidence of that. There's nothing that we can point to that say, oh, yeah, if Sam just does this and this, he'll beat out Trey for sure. What? No. Sam throws a ton of picks, turns the ball over, has been a very inconsistent quarterback. I'm sure he'll be better, but is he going to be a totally different guy? I mean, that's people have made it sound like you put it, but as Akash points out with Geno, and as Brian Billick pointed out to us many years ago on the radio, the hardest thing to evaluate in the NFL is the quarterback versus what's going on around the quarterback. So we'll see. Maybe Geno's problem wasn't Geno. Maybe it was the Jets, and now he's in Seattle. He's all better. Maybe Sam Darnold's issue wasn't Wasn't Sam Darnold. Maybe it was the Jets and the Panthers. Now he winds up here in San Francisco, and he's a house on fire. But fish and chips. Sammy Dimes. Sammy Dimes. Well, we're going to be talking a lot about Sammy Dimes this summer, and Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, hopefully, and probably not very much about the fourth quarterback. But later on today, I'm doing a video on all the camp battles. The one thing that this draft provided us was a little closure on what the roster is going to look like. I mean, I still think the Niners may go after. There's a great piece on Niners Nation, by the way. Check it out by our guest yesterday, Jordan Elliott, on the 3 free agent edge rushers the Niners ought to target. And the Niners do have some cap room now, a little bit, enough for one edge rusher. And he throws out Leonard Floyd, Justin Houston, and Marcus Golden. I hope I didn't ruin the tease for everybody, but those are the 3 guys. You can go read the article and his justification. I have thrown out on this platform Leonard Floyd. I mean, Leonard Floyd, 3 years in a row, was damn good for the Rams. Really good. He's had at least 9 sacks in each of his last 3 seasons. He had 11.5% pressure rate as the Rams' primary rushing threat for the majority of last season. He's only 30. I think he's kind of a late bloomer. I think he could have 3. To me, Leonard Floyd is the final piece to the puzzle. I really believe that. I think Leonard Floyd on the Niner front is the final piece of the puzzle. That will get them over. You know, the rest of the roster is good enough. Would I like one more tackle? Sure, but I'm okay with the guys they got. They're pretty deep, almost everywhere. If they could just add one edge rusher who was their number 1 guy opposite Bosa, you know, not just a guy, but somebody who's like a true number 1 guy, a proven guy, a Leonard Floyd. You add a Leonard Floyd to what they have, and I think they're ready to run. I think they're ready to roll. I think that's a team that I think could win the Super Bowl. There's obviously questions about the quarterback, and that has to be get solved. You're not doing it with Brandon Allen, okay? I'm pretty sure. So either Trey's going to have to get better, Brock's going to have to get healthy, or Darnold's going to have to be recreated as a good quarterback because they need a quarterback. But outside of the quarterback, you get Leonard Floyd, I think you're good to go. It's time to line it up and play it. You know, get them all coached up, see what you got in camp. But Leonard Floyd, to me, is the final piece to the puzzle. So I agree with Jordan Elliott. That would be the nice move right there. Add an edge rusher, and you're home. By the way, I was looking at an article this morning. It said Sportswriter makes jaw-dropping claim about where Sam Darnold ranks as a thrower in 49er history. I think Matt Maiocco is going to get raked, absolutely raked over the coals nationally for saying that Sam Darnold might be, can I say this, the most talented thrower of the football that the 49ers have ever had. I mean, that just is like, hey guys, look at me, get over here. You know, I mean, there's no, you can't push back and say, man, I don't like all the attention I'm getting when you're saying on a team that had Joe Montana and Steve Young that Sam Darnold is the best thrower of the football. And I understood what Matty was saying, and I'm sure, I'll tell you, there's a lot of people that are really upset about that, and you know why they're upset? Because they know Matt is connected. They know Matt has sources. They know Matt knows Lynch. He knows, Shanahan. He's in the room. He's connected. So when they hear that, they're not mad that Matt said that. They're like, that's coming from the Niners. They're trying to push Sam Darnold. Ah! Oh, it's the drama of this summer is going to be awesome. Awesome. Day after day after day. Hail Mary Sports. Larry, what's good? What's up, Hail Mary? That's Alex Barber. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on, giving us draft coverage. Waveware. He's their mouthpiece. See, here it comes. G. Martinez. Mayoko's a funny guy. Oh, man. And now immediately it's like, you say anything that's anti-Trey. Oh, my God. Or not even anti-Trey, just like positive Sam Darnold. But it does. We got this one. That's a great one, too. Where's the Mai Tais from Eric? Matt's had too many Mai Tais with John Lynch. Joey Nichols. It is going to be a ridiculous circus. Ron Holiday says wait a second. Ron Holder. I said Holiday. Ron Holder. The Krueg show is still in Scottsdale? No, but we're giving more love to our sponsor by letting everybody know that they took us to Scottsdale earlier this year in March. Yeah, it's May. We probably should pull that down. That's how much I want to give New York-style Italian sausage. Greg Escon says, Larry, didn't you say there was no way in hell that Darnold would beat out Lance? I can't see it. I absolutely can't. I would be shocked. If there's a legitimate competition, I'd be totally shocked if Sam Darnold beats out Trey Lance. You got to remember this. Trey Lance has been in this offense now for a while. He knows it. And he's got mobility. He's got arm strength. He's smart. He's going to improve. There's no doubt. That's why the whole Sam Darnold is going to start stuff is like, what? Really? He's going to beat out Trey this summer? But we'll see. It's going to be juicy. It's going to be absolutely juicy. Every single day. Trey versus Sam. Sam versus Trey. Who's getting the first team reps? Who's getting the second team reps? Who's going to get to play first in the preseason? What did this guy say about the quarterbacks? What did that guy say about the quarterbacks? I saw Sam, he was at a Giants game with Klay Thompson and Christian McCaffrey. They were all sitting together at a Giants game. Where's Trey? Why is Trey not at the Giants game? It's going to be good. It's going to be really, really good. Every day, the drama, back and forth. You got a football team trying to prepare to win a Super Bowl, but it's going to be Sam versus Trey, Trey versus Sam. All kinds of people weighing in. I'll say this. Why have vitriol towards Sam Darnold? Why? He's been shitty, but he hasn't been shitty here. He's been shitty elsewhere. So why all this hate towards Sam Darnold? Let him, if they can compete, whatever. We'll see. Jim Harbaugh said it. Football's the ultimate meritocracy. If you really believe that Brock Purdy's the best, then Brock Purdy will be the best. If you really believe that Trey Lance is far and away the best upside quarterback and that he's got the most talent, he's been in the office long enough to be good. It's not like he doesn't know the offense. He knows the offense the best. Then it's on. I'm sure he'll play to it. If you're a believer that Darnold it's all about the Jets and he's actually great, we're gonna get a chance to see it. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. And the dialogue around it day to day is going to be incredible. But I really don't understand the pushback on the Sam thing, because it's like, hey, he's been brought in to compete for a job with a guy who should easily beat him out. So what? But I get the sense, and maybe I'm wrong, but I get the sense there's a lot of people that feel like it's not going to be a fair fight. Sam's going to have some upper hand. He's already going to be given the edge. This is not going to be a real fight. This is going to be fixed. Shanahan's rooting for Darnold. It's like the players are cozying up to Darnold. It'll be decided by them. And then there'll be people that will literally say that the players decide who plays. Kyle doesn't decide who plays. The players want Sam, and that's why Sam's going to play. And it's just I can already see all these different back and forth. We'll see. Let's be honest about this. we're looking at two guys who both went third in the draft. I mean, in some ways, they're very similar, right? If you said in the grand scheme of life, both guys got drafted, went third overall. It didn't work out right away. They're both relatively the same size and the same age. One guy's 6'3", 225. The other guy's 6'4", maybe 220. They're basically the same size guy. Both pretty athletic. Both were highly rated. Both so highly rated they both went number 3. Now let's see. Nothing's going to be handed to Trey. Nothing's going to be handed to Sam, and we'll see. The one thing that we can agree is that they both, once upon a time, have been thought of to be great. I will say this, I did the interview yesterday with Spencer Wagee, and Spencer obviously was a former teammate of Trey. And then when I asked him about Trey, he's like, oh, yeah, Trey's like, you'd know this guy's the quarterback if you didn't even know it. If you didn't even know who he was, you'd know he's the quarterback. He just acts like the quarterback. He carries himself as the quarterback. He's a leader. He's, the guys love him. He's the same guy all the time. So several of the traits that you love to hear about any person for any job. Spencer spoke of Trey yesterday. Go check that out on YouTube. Really good conversation with Spencer, but it was just that, he was like, oh yeah, Trey's already texted him since the Niners added him as an undrafted free agent. And he's like, yeah, you could just see, he was at our local pro day, and you can just see he hasn't changed at all since when he was here, even though he's been in the NFL the last few years. He's the same guy. That you want to win guys over in the room. That is what wins guys over. Be the same guy every day. So I think this is going to be really interesting because they both have a lot of talent. They both were once upon a time thought to be like the guy. Neither is going to be anointed as the guy right now. But let's be honest. The same way that Brock, hit the ground running, played so well that people were like, Jimmy? What? Jimmy who? We hope he never gets healthy. We're staying with Brock. The same way that happened for Brock, Sam Darnold or Trey Lance have an opportunity this summer to show up, play the best football of their career, and if they take it and run with it and take it to a certain level, we could not look back. Sam Darnold could go into this camp, complete 70% of his passes, move the team up and down the field in the preseason, look outstanding, win the job, and never look back if the Niners are scoring 35 a game and winning games and he looks phenomenal. This idea that it for sure has to go back to Brock, it's likely to go back to Brock. Shanahan, I think, wants to go back to Brock, but he's not going to ignore the quarterback that's kicking ass in front of his face. Trey Lance suddenly beats out Sam Darnold, looks great in the preseason. They're scoring 28 a game, 30 a game. He's making plays. He's throwing the ball down the field. He's looking great. The team's vibing. They're not going to run back to Brock right away. So, yeah, it all sets up for Brock. But nothing is etched in stone. It's merit-based. It's a merit-based field. And that's why it's such a great room. Because it doesn't matter if you're fat or thin. It doesn't matter if you're tall or short. It doesn't matter what your deal is, where you're from, what your story is, who drafted you, how much money you're making. At the end of the day, there's so much damn pressure to win in the NFL. You either do or you don't. You either can play or you can't. And so there's so much, that's the beauty of it. It's like there's very little like who's going to take whose job, because it's like, you know what? If you can play, you can play. And I lie, you lie, but the film never lies, as they say. So to me, it's a lot of conjecture, but let's first of all, everybody obviously can have an opinion. I've got an opinion. You got an opinion. My opinion is that Trey will beat out Darnold this preseason. But if somebody else wants to throw out something that suggests that Darnold is going to beat out Trey, you don't have to hate on them. You could just be like, that's their point of view. Why? Because we're gonna get the competition. We're gonna see it. It's like a fight that we know is coming. It's scheduled, We don't need to sit there and go, this guy can kick that guy's ass. We don't need to say that because they're going to compete, and we're going to see it play out. And all I'll say is I hope for the sake of the team that it's very clear cut. I hope it's not super murky, because I've heard people say if Sam Darnold is starting on week 1, like something all is wrong with the world, or there needs to be an investigation, or I forget what it was. It was like, people already kind of throwing that out. Like if Sam Darnold starts, something's very, very wrong. It's like, can we just see it play out? Can we just see it play out? Because they're really very similar. They're just a few years removed, and neither has fulfilled their potential, and neither's done anything to just hand them the job. So they're both in a competitive situation. But I think it's exciting. I really do. I think it's exciting. But I want it to be clear-cut, because if it isn't clear-cut, then we have something that is divisive. And that's not good. You don't want a divisive quarterback room. You want 3 options of guys that can play, but you want everybody to kind of be pulling the rope in the same direction. Joey Nichols, Trey and Sam will have an opportunity to take the job. Anybody who plays football, when you get on the field, it's all about moving the team, scoring touchdowns, being on time with your passes, reading coverages, playing the position. It's not about who sat courtside at the Warrior game. Dapping up Klay Thompson doesn't help you on 3rd and 11. It really doesn't. So it's just a matter of who's going to be the best player at the time. We're going to find out. But it's going to be a circus. Ron Holder, Larry, what would it be without drama? It wouldn't be 49er training camp without drama. There's drama queens. Well, it's not drama queens, but it's the low-hanging fruit story. I mean, it's just going to be like, it's not just the Niners story, juiciest story. It's one of the NFL's juiciest stories. So the NFL Network's going to park right there. They're going to set up a set. There's probably a guy building it right now. Brash Cat says all those quarterbacks are good dudes. I don't see any friction in there. Yeah, no, there won't be. There's not going to be problems. They got good guys. Brock's solid. Trey's solid. I don't know about Sam Darnold, but he's going to be forced to be solid just because he's the new guy in there. Joey Nichols, there will probably be things Trey does better at and things Sam does better at, or days where Sam is good and Trey isn't, and vice versa. Oh, I know. It's going to be, once again, 2 words. Get ready for it. Camp stats. Camp stats. Woo! We're getting camp stats. Jan Shozela, I think Darnold has plenty of time to learn the playbook. He knows that 1-year deal is a golden opportunity. Yes, sir. Is Sam a good dude too? I don't know. I don't really know Sam. He probably is. He's probably a solid guy. He's buddies with Klay Thompson. G. Martinez, camp stats. Yes. Get ready. Behind me. I should come up with graphics. Behind me is a chart. The chart tells you everything you need to know. The red color designates incompletions. The green color designates completions. The yellow designates, I mean, could you imagine? Camp stats. Get ready for it. Do you realize, and then people are going to be, citing them. Do you realize that Darnold has completed 57% of his passes while Lance has completed 64.5%? Are you aware of that? It's like, get ready for that. Like, what game is that? No, that was in camp. I read blankety blank on Twitter. He had it. So now we're going secondhand camp stats. Eric says Grant loves camp stats. Does he? I got to talk to him about that then. Fish and chips. Larry, you should have camp stats for who is doing camp stats. Yes. That would be awesome. Camp stats. And then I'll just pick one, like somebody's tweet of the day that I think, or how about this? Revealing camp stats brought to you by New York Style Italian Sausage. Time now for our favorite segment of the day here in July, revealing camp stats. Do you know that the 49ers eat 11,000 pounds of red meat throughout the course of a season and travel 12,472 miles? And this year, because they're going to be going to London, Brash Cat says Grant started camp stats. Thunderbird, Larry, I'll buy you tickets to the Oakland A's game. Want to go for free? I just got a voucher. I'm set. I got vouchers in the mail for free A's tickets. I'll take it. I'll go. What the hell? Why not? Thunderbird. Larry, did you know KMBR is live on YouTube now? You know what? Better late than never. Welcome to the party, guys. Come on over. Good to see you. Grab a treat. Grab a super chat. Sit down. Cutting edge. They were all over it from the outset. Fish and chips. Yeah, camp stats. Oh, there we go. There you go. Oh, this is the one I wanted. Grant loves camp stats. It's not just Grant. A lot of people like camp stats. G2 the universe. Next gen camp stats. Maybe that would be the great. That'd be a great nickname. Yeah, I'm the next gen camp stats guy. Oh my gosh. We get this one from Trock. He says KMBR wouldn't be engaging like this format. Oh, I'm sure they're just going to have their shows on there. But I mean, heck, Nahagian and 95.7 have been on there for what, a year? Well, it took KMBR a year to fill out the deal to get on YouTube. Yeah, guess what? You're getting your butt kicked. You better get off the canvas, KMBR. You're getting your butt kicked in every time slot. That's the way it's going right now. So I would, whatever your game plan is, I might want to adjust. Just saying. We got this one from. Oh wait, there we go. Come in. 3 just jumped in there. Hi there. Says most anticipated season ever. I don't know about that. I don't know about the most anticipated season ever. Look at MF. MF is so positive. I like KMBR. Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Trox says no radio show is as good as shows like this. Fan engagement. All right. Vish is feeling under the weather today, but we're going to do some Niner videos this afternoon. I may do one more Niner live stream. We got Warriors-Lakers game 3 from Crypto post-game tomorrow. Thunderbird says you can do a Giants post-game. I think I am going to do a Giants post-game tonight. Giants back on the homestand after being out on the road. So I'm going to do one tonight. So check for that later on today. But have a great day to everybody. Thanks to our sponsors, New York Style Italian Sausage, Telmetrics.co, and, of course, Pig and a Pickle. 2 locations there in Emeryville and in Corte Madera. 1-star chat that I had that I really liked. Kevin Duff. He says, Joey Fisher, Jair Brown, D. Winters, Robert Beal could be seriously good players for us and mix them in with the superstar lineup already there, and will seriously be good again this year. Yeah, I'm doing a video this afternoon on the camp battles that we're going to see, and just going through it last night and getting ready to produce that video. I went through and I just looked at the Niners. To me, they're really stacked. I mean it's a very, very loaded football team. They may not be as loaded as Philly or as proven as Kansas City, and maybe there's a couple teams in there, but their roster's up against anybody's. They're deep everywhere. They're really one veteran edge rusher away from being like absolutely incredible. Right now, they don't have that big time veteran edge rusher. That's a concern. But they have cap room to go get that player if they want to get that player. So I'm not really concerned. You add Leonard Floyd to the 49ers, and they are as good a team as the Eagles or anybody else. So they're really, really deep. I love some of the pickups in the secondary. I think that's the nice area of improvement. But then the linebacking core, Jalen Graham and Winters, absolute. Those to me, those two picks right there are really exciting picks. The fact that you've got Winters and Jalen Graham, and I loved seeing that McCloughan was so big on Jalen Graham, because a lot of the things that he talked about in that piece that in The Athletic, written by Matt Barrows yesterday, are the exact same things that you see on film with Jalen Graham. He hits, he runs, he covers, he knows how to play. Absolutely knows how to play. So to add two backers like that, I haven't even seen really Mariano Sori-Marin from Minnesota. But you got Greenlaw, you got Fred Warner, you got an improving Marcelino McCrary-Ball, and then you've got special team backers like Flanagan Fowles and Curtis Robinson and Oren Burks. And then you add Winters and Jalen Graham, who both run exceptionally well to that group. Niners at linebacker are really, really exciting. 49er Faithful makes a super chat. He says, can fans watch next week's rookie minicamp? You can watch it through my eyes. I'm going, and then I'll do live streams telling you all about it. And there will be some that we can film. I'll film some of it and bring it back. So I don't think fans cannot attend the minicamp. I'm pretty sure. If I'm wrong, I'll look that up and correct that, but I don't believe so. I don't think there's any fans on campus until training camp. When training camp happens, you'll see fans. Until then, no fans. Which sucks, because I'm sure the fans would love to see these rookies running around and see exactly who they got in the draft and how they're looking. And believe me, these rookie minicamps matter. These guys show up, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, man, I didn't realize this guy's that good. Or, hey, we drafted this guy and we thought he was this, and he showed up and he was that. This isn't the guy we saw on tape. We sure we got the right guy? I mean, then there's revelations. There's like, oh my God, this undrafted rookie free agent. Yeah, they clocked him at 4.7, but our scouts said they had a faster time on him, and sure enough, we just clocked him today. He's at 4.48. It's like, what? What? And it's a moving target. Guys are getting better. Guys are getting worse. Guys are getting thinner. Guys are getting fatter. Guys are changing. So if you're working out, you could be quite a bit better in late May than you were in March at the combine, or at some All-Star game in January, if you've been working out for the last 3 months and working on your craft and trying to get better. So these rookie mini camps are always like, whoa, that's an eye-opener. It's one of those you want to attend for sure. All right, that does it for us. Thanks to everybody. Check us out later today on the channel. Maybe a little Giants post-game tonight. Go Giants. Have a great one. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you